Follow along with me as we take an in-focus look at this fascial lines elasticity sequence. One of the main practices here is going to be precisely eliciting the elastic recoil everywhere in the body. It's a natural phenomenon that we'll see, for example, most clearly in athletic context, jumping and also throwing, kicking. But it also exists in my finger here as I spring it backwards and forwards. So it's something that can be elicited and created. And with this comes the possibility to produce and transmit a lot of force. So it's very integral on this kind of macro scale when we're being very explosive through space, and also on the micro level in terms of everyday movements like walking. So we're going to go through all the main lines of the body. So these include, for example, the long diagonal lines which stretch from the foot or the tip of the toe all the way to the finger, crossing the body, the lateral lines, as well as kind of the long lines on the back and the front of the body. But at the same time, we also will look at some shorter lines, for example, lines of the arms of what we call the longer or the shorter chest, incorporating the arms, and also across the back and other things too. There'll be two variations of this sequence. One is a bit more concise and still comprehensive, and the other one will go into a little bit more detail, focusing on more lines of the upper and the lower body. So starting with sequence A, we're going to elicit a rebound from the level of the elbow. I'm just going to throw the arm back here. Very important is to make sure your shoulder is nice and stable in the socket. And I'm feeling this elastic recoil through the back of the triceps here, breaking at the elbow and even going all the way down through the wrists into the fingers, and I'm getting this nice whip back. I just give my attention up to that side. I can switch to the other side. Now, intensity, as you develop the control over the elastic recoil, you can increase the intensity, but in the initial instance, just elicit that elastic recoil and make sure it's true. And only after that, and especially if the shoulders as well feel stable, in some cases, if it's because it's quite forceful, if the structure there isn't quite set optimally, it can cause problems. And then, yeah, after that point, you can start to increase the magnitude. We then go straight from the single to a double, throwing both behind the back here. It's as if I'm trying to touch the thumbs together, and like I'm driving a wheel behind me. And I give attention to each side as well. This helps stretch the lateral side of the neck too, and we start working into the upper chest as well. The next context is still going to be working along the lateral line, but now we lengthen the whole of the line. The important visualization here, or the understanding, is that I'm stretching from the fingers all the way down underneath the foot here. So I even feel a nice, even, long elastic line across that whole chain. I want to avoid kind of breaking it too specifically, for example, in the lower back. And again, just being mindful of the force of throwing the shoulder. And that is the long elastic lines of the lateral sides. We're now going to work our way into the chest, and it's going to be as if I'm ripping apart a parcel and then stopping very, very quickly. I pull it apart, and then at the same time when I pull apart, my elbows bounce off two trampolines, and there's a snapping sensation through the middle of the chest. And I can alternate the arms as well if I want to somewhat equalize the stimulus. And there's a very distinctive snap that you'll hear in the muscles as you develop that quality. I then simply bring the arms out a little bit wider, as if I'm holding a big ball, and I repeat the same action. And now I should feel that this line actually transmits a little bit further all the way through the palms, even to the middle finger here now. So I'm now connecting this line all the way through with this big ball. We then go to the upper back chain, working similarly in a close position. And now I'm feeling this stretch as if the shoulder blades are being pulled apart while still hugging around quite a small trunk of a tree. So I'm not just kind of stretching through, but I'm creating that kind of circle. And again, I can alternate the arms with this one. And as before, a little bit more difficult to elicit across the longer back line. It has the feeling that I'm kind of shooting my hands forward and eliciting a snap all across the back of the arms into the middle of the back. Now we're going to go over the top, and with this one comes dropping of the weight. I drop my weight down, and I distinctly feel the whole tissues of the back and some of the pecs as well, following this motion and rebounding downwards. And as with all of these stretches, it feels like the flesh is rubbing over the skeleton, which is a very healthy movement, which helps nourish all the fascia and the layers of the tissues. Now we're going to look at the longer lines, which is going to be very similar to the explosive phase of a jump. I'm going to throw the arms up, and I cap the force on the top is what the sensation is of. And what I feel is a snap and a long pull all the way down through the long muscles of the lats. I need to be mindful that I'm not losing the force backwards. I actually need to actively, it is if I'm boom, pulling it down afterwards. I throw the arms up, and then I cap it. We now work similarly as if for the loading phase of the jump, throwing the arms into extension, giving special attention for the flexion of the wrist going all the way down to the fingers, this elastic recoil. And notice this, I'm kind of combining it with this upward drive at the same time, and just eliciting that in shoulder extension. Once again, in this position, do just be mindful for the shoulders, it's a lot of force there. Now we're going to start looking at some of these more kind of localized cross lines, which do transmit through the entire body. I take a staggered stance, I like a square with one foot on the other side of the square. I sink myself, and as if throwing a bucket of water over the shoulder. Again, I don't need to be too forceful. If it's too short, I do get the similar sensation, but I can lengthen this, and ideally we want to lengthen this. So actually, this, I feel this wrap all the way down through here, all the way back around, and even down to this leg. From this position, I feel the stretch coming on this side actually, because it spirals down there. I go then down to the other side, to the lower part, and again, chopping again. I feel this now coming through the back of the shoulder, all the way down the back into this leg, and then low on the other side. And again, I feel this through the shoulder, up here, all the way down to this leg as well, being grounded, and back up over the other shoulder here. I'm going to hop into my other stance, and I do the same on the other side. Now, when we're actually working with this routine, you're going to be doing a lot less reps. These ones, for example, may just be 3 reps, but if you do want to study it a little bit more, you can do 5 or even 10. But just be mindful of the magnitude of the force that you're using. I forgot it on the first side, but as soon as we do these 4 points, then we connect those points pumping from the ground. There is a slight coordination here. It's essentially a double infinity or figure 8. And I'm just going to do it on the other side because I missed it. But I would do each of those corners and then connect the corners from here. And lastly, for the upper body, leading into the posterior chain, rather than bending and hinging at the legs and getting all the length from the legs, I'm going to flex the knees slightly and open up the lower back. I feel like a turtle from this position. I let the head hang, and it stretches all the way to the crown of the head here. And even just with the weight of the arms, I just pump from the ground, and I feel a lot more of an equalized stretch. It also loads a little bit more in the lumbar spine, which is where we want to elicit some of the elasticity from here. Also through the neck. Boom, 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 boom. Perfect. Let's bring ourselves up now and work the lines of the legs, incorporating the arms. We're going to start on the ipsilateral sides, touching the same foot with the same side hand from here. Now with the other arm, I'm always going to keep in mind that I'm creating a line from this arm to the other arm, and also in the next one we do as well. So there's actually 2 lines being created here. One is between the arms, or if we think of just a single line, it takes a deviation from here and then it shoots down this side. So the line is open kinetic chain on these 2 sides. Okay, I close to the side. This leg must stay straight. If we flex it, then we lose the elasticity from the lower leg. So if you have to touch higher up the knee, this is much better than trying to touch the toes and finding yourself cramped down. Okay, create this nice long line through the hand, root down through the standing leg and feel yourself pull tall. Switching to the other side. And again with these, Once you have the quality of the routine we're looking for, the elasticity, 5 will be enough. Just one last note with this, very important, is that in order to equalize the extension through the whole chain here, and we're not missing any parts out or focusing the energy too much in one place, it's quite especially the hip we want to open here. So what can happen sometimes is we touch and we just flex at the knee, and this is just knee flexion, but rather I want to open that hip back here without going into my lower back, which also localizes the forces too much, so nice and evenly spread. We now go from the ipsilateral to the contralateral. So again, from here, I create this line also between the arms as well as the leg, kicking the wall behind me, so I'm hopping forward. And again, 5 or 10 here, and the other side. Now, it's also possible, if you want to increase the intensity, to do some of these back to back. So for example, I can go straight from the ipsilateral and then go to the contralateral. But quality, first of all, is the main thing, so don't tire yourself out too much so that it breaks down. Now we go to the frontal plane. We looked at the sagittal plane and this diagonal plane. We're now going to look at the leg swinging in front of the body. Now, first of all, it's very important that we keep this leg in the frontal plane, which means it's cutting directly left and right at 180 degrees angle. In order to achieve this, I'm going to internally, externally rotate. I feel the weight of the leg at the bottom pouring in. And this is perfect, first of all. The only thing I'm going to do is combine it with a crossing of the arms and then an opening. Crossing, opening. Also, is almost as if I start to feel this bow around my back from the arms, similar to the legs as they cross as well. Ultimately, I want to start to increase the height of this whilst not losing any of the elastic quality. And go through the other side. I knew I was going to kick the tree, so I'll save it to leaves. Now I'm kicking the fence. This is great, isn't it? Perfect. So I'm driving down through the floor with this leg, keeping a vertical axis and feeling the ground reaction force drive back into my structure to sustain it, whilst also trying to remain nice and grounded. From the cross, from the bowed arms, we're now going to go into an opposite swing with the arms, both arms to the body. And now this is going to elicit a lot more of a twisting sensation, kind of eliciting this whole serape system that kind of binds us around in this bow-like shape. Again, opposite arms to the leg. The sensation here is almost like I'm swinging 2 bags of shopping in front of me, or if you want to be more gym-like, one of those logs filled with water that you can use, which can be very, very useful. So that's for what concerns the frontal legs. Now we're going to work with a figure 8 shape. Again, drawing as high and as wide as possible without flexing at the level of the knee. So if it's possible further up here, that's absolutely fine. Likewise, if it's only here, this is no problem too. When I switch directions. And again, if I need to switch legs between directions to maintain quality, this is also preferred. As much as possible, try to keep the standing foot quiet. As you can see, it's not so easy. Switch to the other leg. And what's happening behind is there is also a loop at the back here, so I can facilitate a clean trajectory without feeling that I go and cut it back and forward. A loop around. Again, 5 or 10 in each direction for the legs. Now we're going to take ourselves down to the floor and we're going to explore the posterior chain. So from here, rather than completely sinking down into my kind of smallest position here, I'm going to hold a little bit out of it, almost like I was doing for the standing one, so I can elicit a bit more of an elastic recoil in the back, or else here I'm just collapsing. Go for 10 or so, and then I'm going to alternate, feeling that slight angular adjustment. Now straight from here, exactly the same thing. Rather than collapsing into my deepest pike, I maintain a little bit of tension,
so that I can get an elastic recoil. And I pulsate, and I am slightly pushing with my head against the floor, both to create this and to connect this movement all the way to the head. And again here, I can go into the butterflies. I'm going to bring myself up. And now I'm just going to do a grounded stop. So I can just start here dropping the hips. Most importantly is that I use the whole front side of the body, spreading the tension evenly to create this elastic rebound rather than just breaking in the knees here or just kind of going a bit too slow to get the elastic quality. You can start to lift the feet if you would like the greater intensity, and you can also work with the full stop. A few more repetitions for these, 10 to 20 or so. From here, wiggle your way in just for a moment, and then with the weight of the head as well, connected it all the way up to the crown from the heels, knees straight, elicit the elastic rebound. Again, I don't have to be pulling into my deepest range. I just want to get the elastic recoil. Coming up toward the end from the knees, I shift the hips forward powerfully, boom, and I open like a star. You can see the force even brings me almost up onto my knees. And I'm also connecting this diagonal line through the arms too. It must be powerful, or else the elastic quality like this isn't there. I need to give it that good hip thrust. Bring ourselves up. Now we can hinge at the hip, use the weight of the head, of course, just as low as you find yourself. You can use the weight of the head and also of the arms as well. Just relax through the neck so that it aligns with gravity. And again, 20 or so of these quick pulses. And lastly, we repeat the same exercise, the exploding star that was on the knees, but then we work standing. Boom, boom. And it's almost like my body wants to propel itself off the edge of the terrace, connecting that all the way through. Perfect. So just as mentioned during the sequence, the general amount of repetitions once the sequence has been learnt can be as little as 5 repetitions if they're quality repetitions. And during the learning phases, maybe up to 10 repetitions, and just keeping the intensity a little bit lower. Okay, so enjoy that elasticity sequence, and then we'll look at sequence B.
So you can follow along again as we take an in-focus look at fascial-lines elasticity sequence B. It's pretty much exactly the same in terms of the structure and of course the principles as in sequence A. The only difference is that it has a few more forms and exercises interjected, which makes it basically a little bit more comprehensive. Mainly we'll be looking at a few extra lines of the upper body, also kind of exploring the back a little bit more as well, and some more of the kind of shorter and longer lines of the chest and the upper back. And we're also going to interject specifically a few more lower body leg contacts to elicit the elasticity, which will help to express a little bit more also the rotation in the hips with some new patterns. You can move into the sequence essentially once you feel that you're becoming proficient with the contacts already in sequence A, and if you want to explore something a little bit more expansive. But also at the same time, if you've been working with sequence A for a long time and you're becoming proficient, you'll generally be reducing the repetitions, because if you can just elicit a quality elastic response in 5 repetitions or even 3, that's perfect. So it might just be the case that you move on to sequence B to bulk it out just a little bit more and have kind of a nice comprehensive sequence in terms of volume and the content. So the first main new contacts we're going to work with are the chest and back lines. So I'm going to drop my arm in the frontal plane here just with the weight of the arm, and when it reaches towards horizontal, I'm going to snap back through the elbow, and I'm going to work for alternating repetitions between the arms. And what I'm noticing distinctly here is, especially across the front of the pectoral, is getting that elastic recoil in alignment with the force production. So it's as if I'm elbowing towards the outside, and once again I get this very audible snap from the chest region. From here we're going to work with the elbow across the body, combined with a sharp exhale, which helps tighten the structure. And I try to cut all the way across the body rather than keeping it too short. And here I'm going to be feeling that elastic stretch all the way across this kind of diagonal line into the opposite side oblique essentially, and notably through the lower back too. It's changing. I take a slightly square stance, so I'm essentially slightly contralateral. And now I'm going to drive similarly with the elbow upward through to the sky, opening up slightly through the armpit here and essentially pulling in through the lat, combined with a vertical or an axial drive upwards. Noticing it's also pulling through the chest as well and opening through the ribs too. So from here, we're going to go essentially into the familiar short chest line, snapping outwards as if ripping a package open and banging the elbows against drums or trampolines. Then I go to the longer chest line. Once again, we're familiar with this from sequence A, like I'm holding around a large tree. And then lastly, we go to the long chest and arm line, just being mindful, of course, of relaxing too much in the arms and sending too much of this force into the shoulders. But essentially now I'm opening, if you're familiar with this kind of chest fly exercise, it's rebounding off that whole anterior chain there, including the arms, the biceps, even down into the hands. We go to the back line, the short back line that we're familiar with from sequence A, alternating the arms. It's nice to kind of equalize the reps, maybe 3 to the top, 3 to the bottom. And then the long back line, similarly, as if hugging around this big tree, but this time hugging around the tree, but this time it's much bigger. We come from here again, as we're familiar with, kind of eliciting this cycling over and this shell-like quality from the upper back and the lats, at the shoulders and then backwards, combining it with the dropping of the weight. Okay, and then we can come into this kind of long shell
using the weight of the arms and the head, the arms naturally penduluming and pushing up and down back from the floor through this shape in the lower back. And I can bring myself up, and as before, sequence A, kind of capping the force on top of the explosion phase of the jump, and then from there into shoulder extension. Again, pumping from the ground, eliciting the elastic recoil across the front of the arms, all the way through the wrists and into the fingertips. And then from here, we can look at the elbow line. So let's go into the elbows. Just 5 times or so each side. Always kind of attention to that one side. So I open up, almost flaring through the side of the ribs. Even this recoil down here, a little bit of a pullback, snap, 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 snap. Then we go in for the double. Again, as if trying to touch the thumbs. Notice the attention, again, going one side then the other. Even feeling it spiral up slightly through the neck. And then we go straight here into the long lateral line, all the way down into the foot, pulling back against it. Always mindful for the shoulder, incorporating it in the long elastic line, rather than feeling that, for example, the force is coming out through the shoulder. I'm keeping it nice and connected, pulling back on that line there. Then we can come into the X form, throwing the water over the shoulder. First of all, just 3 to 5 in each direction. Crossing down, then crossing down to the other side. I really just need to kind of illuminate this line. I don't really need to forcefully throw in that end range. Just eliciting it, nourishing that line, connecting, pumping from the ground now, connecting the 4 points in the double infinity or figure 8, using that to switch stance. And again, just working 3s this time, keeping it nice and concise. Pumping through the legs, pumping through the legs. Good, and now we go into the legs. Shifting the weight to the one side, rooting down, feeling the ground reaction force, rising up like a fountain, sustaining my structure. And then we work the ipsilateral, long line from the arm to the leg, 5 times or so. Then we go to the contralateral. And as you can see, maybe in sequence A, I was taking the time to switch sides. But if I'm feeling more proficient with my balance, etc., and then I can just work directly, for example, from the ipsilateral here into the contralateral. So I'll find myself doing about 10 repetitions with these 2, 5 of each, without taking that rest as before. And always remembering to incorporate the arm lines with these leg lines as well, for that more kind of global shape that we're looking for. Working now into the frontal plane. So crossing the arms, pushing down through the floor with the foot, feeling the force coming up back in, then switching the arms and leg in opposite directions. Working across to the side. Maybe just going towards the maximal magnitude on the last few reps once balance is established. And if you find yourself losing balance, then just kind of slow it back down, get the swing again, and then continue. So we have, again, the big single leg 8. And again, this kind of dorsal loop, working the other direction as well. Always keeping the leg straight at the knee to elicit the long elastic line. Again, this is still the same as from sequence A. As we mentioned there as well, where necessary, keep it lower so that the elastic line can be sustained all the way through the leg without kind of breaking at the radius of the knee. Next, the addition to the legs.
we're going to work with to the back, a dorsal loop, and to the front, this is going to lead into a whip of the leg in a circle. Now here, I can work with guiding through the ball of the foot. I lift the knee just above the hip line, but ensuring that I'm not bringing too much tension into it, because what I want to feel is that the head of the femur is allowed to rotate naturally inside the hip joint. If I slow this down, I'm quite deliberately externally rotating, internally rotating here, and it creates like this cream whip to the front, and then we combine it with the dorsal loop. This is also elicited quite from the center of the body. There's a small spiral that happens in the middle of the body, and then it magnifies out into the leg. So just ensure it's not kind of just isolating it to the leg. It will take some practice, and of course we can plug this out as an exercise to itself. We also do the other direction. So of course this side I start internally kicking out, now I'm in the other direction. This is also familiar from the single leg eights. And ultimately we're looking for a smooth, clean trajectory. If you're still unclear about the pattern, there is the dorsal loop to the back, it comes to the front, continues in a circle, then comes back again. So it's essentially an infinity figure eight, but to the front there is a circle which continues in the same direction. And then of course when I change sides, it repeats back in the other direction. It's like doing an extra loop at the front. And we repeat this again on the opposite leg. It will also be a case of catching the optimal time and moment of that rotation. Again, slowing it down, boom. But really we want to inject a little bit of momentum and eventually get that whip behind it. Now we go even shorter to the chain of the leg with leg snaps to the front, back, inside, outside, front, back, inside, outside. Now when I connect the inside and the outside, it feels like a bow that whips inside and then out. If I were to practice here, it almost makes like kind of a miniature figure eight, but it's very snappy, very whippy. Just be mindful of the stability of the ankle and the feet and the toes even, and how it feels, and the intensity with which you kick. So if, for example, you have a history of some broken toes and things in there, they might not want to be thrown around. They might be reminding you. The last thing with this context as well, 5 to 10 in each direction, the sequence, forward, back, inside, outside, is that it comes from the hip. It's as if I'm shooting it almost like from the arm here. I shoot it from the shoulder or from the center here, and it connects through the juncture of the shoulder and is propelled through the end of the chain. It's like a whip. And here a little internal external rotation to facilitate that whipping. Perfect. So that's the only addition for the legs, and the rest of the sequence is going to continue as it did previously. So let's just remind ourselves of that. We're going to find ourselves down into the floor. We work with the short back line here all the way up to the neck, rebounding, holding a bit of tension in that structure there so it's not collapsing, and then with the alternating of the legs, turn or so for each of these. Then working into the pike, again not collapsing but keeping a bit of tension in there to get that elastic recoil. Alternating, and then bringing ourselves up, and we can work with a little bit of a stop progression now. So you might be elevating yourself with the hands also from the floor, and we can also even work with a stop to a squat. Now we're also going to add a side squat, side stop. So from here, from the squat, from the squat position, I'm going to place my hands, jump to the side, and elicit an elastic recoil down the lateral side of the body.
When I get that elastic recoil back, I'm going to drive it back into the middle. And generally, you're going to elicit the best elastic recoil if we place the side that's being stretched, this inside, creating that full length to stretch from, which means that this leg will be behind. Of course, from here, I'm not going to get the same elastic length as I am all the way down through here into this bottom leg because of the hip joint here. So when I'm bouncing towards the side, the left leg here will go back, rebound, back in, rebound, back in, rebound, back in. The main thing is that we start to feel an elastic response coming from the main structure, the center of the body, whilst being stabilized through the legs. And as you develop, you will start to feel a little bit more that whole elastic line from the side here, kind of illuminating and eliciting the whole elastic recoil from the entire chain from the side all the way down into the leg and the feet to bring you back into the squat position. From here, we go into our seated pike. Again, feeling the weight of the head, letting the tension melt. No need to hold, but I can just elicit and pull in this direction. Straight legs, of course, to connect that whole lower posterior chain to the upper. And then we have these star kneeling explosions. It's 5 powerful explosions. We can go then into the standing pike. And again, using the weight of the head, melting the tension in the neck, feeling that the top of the head is leading towards the floor with the weight of the arms, regardless of even if I'm here. And then finishing off. And 5. And then take that moment just to register the sensations of the body. Feel like an elastic sheath has been illuminated around the entire body. Sense of readiness, slightly sweaty, heart rate up, activated and engaged.